Hi, welcome to Diablo 4 University. In this lesson, we'll be covering all things gear. We'll be discussing item rarity, upgrading gear stat modifiers, and even some things you aren't aware of in Diablo 4. Hope you have your keyboard and notepad ready because class is in session. When you enter Sanctuary, there will be a lot of moving parts for you to understand, but the first thing most players will interact with is gear. There are multiple slots of gear, and depending on the class, the weapon slot and type can vary. Now, not all gear is treated equally, as some has more benefit than others. Normal rarity gear is gear that has no affixes and usually have one implicit and is only ever used at the very beginning of your journey. You will quickly run into magic items which come with one implicit, one affix, and sometimes a jewelry socket depending on what slot the gear is for. Rare gear drops with up to 3 affixes and up to 2 gem slots. And legendary gear can drop with 5 affixes, but one of the affixes will be an aspect with a very specific effect that can be taken off of that piece of gear and move onto another piece of non-legendary gear. Unlike in previous Diablo titles, rare and legendary gear functions quite differently. Once you enter World Tier 3, rare gear changes drastically. They can eventually drop with up to 6 affixes, and in Diablo 4, legendaries are not designed to be the end-all be-all gear, at least not the dropped legendaries. That's an important distinction to make because the design is for you to take the aspects off of the legendary gear and then add them to a min-maxed or more tailored rare to transform it into a legendary item with more affixes. Remember, at the base, legendaries only have 5 affixes, but with this new system you can have an additional affix which gives you significantly more power when you have it on all of your other pieces of gear. Also, when you hit World Tier 3 and beyond, you start to unlock unique gear. Unique gear comes with powerful effects similar to legendaries, but more powerful on its own. The item can't be salvaged, nor can you remove the effect and put it on another piece of gear, and the affixes on these items will be exactly the same type, but this does not include the actual number value of the stat. Some are unique to specific classes, while others are general and can be used on any class. While drop legendaries are not designed to be the end-all be-all pieces for your character, uniques can be that for you in combination with legendary transformed rares and maybe other unique gear combos. If you ever played previous Diablo titles, you will notice that set gear is not present, and as of the launch of Diablo 4, set items will not exist. Beyond, they will eventually be added, but they are going to be designed to be on par or lower than legendary items in terms of power. Now, as your instructor, I'm supposed to be unbiased, but I will say I agree with this philosophy. Before we move on, I need you guys to take some notes. You need to like, subscribe, and turn on post notifications as this is going to be important for your next lesson and even after you graduate to Sanctuary. Alright, let's continue. Now for this next part, I want you to follow along closely as this can be a bit confusing. Uniques are not the only items that come with higher world tiers. You get 2 additional versions of gears called Sacred and Ancestral. Rare and Legendary and Uniques can roll with these titles. Normal and Magic cannot. Sacred can roll, from my understanding, up to 20% better than their base counterparts. This isn't guaranteed, but it generally can be better than the base version ever could be. Ancestral items are essentially the same as Sacred items, but they can allegedly roll up to 20% better than Sacred items. One final thing to know about Ancestral unique items is that, according to the Diablo team, on average, players will only find 2 or 3 of these per season, which lasts about 3 months. This means that they are extremely rare. This number may not include players like myself who play for 20 or more hours a day, but even so, these items will not be seen very often. As you can see, gear is very important in Diablo 4. Optimal players will have more refined stats on their gear, as well as generally more gear stats and better rolls compared to players who do not understand the rarity system. Now that is quite a bit of information for you to process, so for your first day we will be ending the lesson here, but just know in the next class we will be covering the actual stats on the gear and maybe a few nuances that you didn't know. Alright, that's gonna do it for this lesson. Just remember your last day of class is on June the 6th. But for those of you who are in a hurry to get into Sanctuary, you can take half the week off and start on the 2nd. Just remember, Server Slam starts on the 12th to give you a bit of real world practice before the launch. I'll be streaming on Twitch as well as YouTube for both Server Slam and the launch, so join me if you have any questions, and have a good day, students.